you, sir, for accepting to do this interview. This is as part of IIFT Speaks that we have Dr. Jaydeep Mukherjee, who is the professor in economics at IIFT. So, sir, before talking about recent budget, we want to know your views about the slowdown. So, a lot has been said on this topic, and what do you think? Is it structural? Is it cyclical? Is it a combination of both? If it is the combination of both, how much? If it is a combination of both, how much of it is structural and how much of it is cyclical?
Okay. If we look into the slowdown for the last 1 year or so, we have to understand that the slowdown is contributed by which factors. We know that GDP has 4 components, which is the private consumption, private investment, government purchase of goods and service, and the net export. Out of these, government purchase of goods and services, that is a government expenditure, is actually on the increase. If we think that the government expenditure roughly contributes around 13% of India's GDP, and if we segregate that side, then actually India's GDP growth from the other 3 components for the second quarter of the current fiscal year, that is 2019-20, is only around 3.05%. You basically know that the second quarter India's GDP growth is 4.5%. But that 4.5% also includes the contribution of the government expenditure. So if we do not consider the government expenditure part, it is roughly around 3.1%. Now this is quite a slowdown. Okay, and one cannot ignore it. The most important factor that has contributed to this slowdown is the fall in consumption expenditure. Consumption expenditure roughly constitute for India around 57 to 60% of the GDP, which is the highest component. If we compare the growth in consumption expenditure for the year 2019-20 second quarter vis-a-vis the previous quarter, the consumption expenditure, which grew at 9.8% in the same period during 2018-19, has increased by only 5.1% during the same period in the current fiscal. This is a significant fall in the growth rate. It is still growing. One thing you have to understand is that our GDP is growing. It is not that GDP is slowing down per se. GDP is growing, but the rate at which it is growing, that rate is falling. Right? So it is growing at a decreasing rate basically. So why is this consumption expenditure falling? And this consumption expenditure fall, one of the major reasons is both the fall in the urban sector as well as in the rural sector. But the fall in rural sector is more what is called is quite major, and it is quite significant given that rural India constitute roughly around 2/3 of the India's total population. It has 2 sides. One is, in many cases what we find is that crop prices have fallen. And on the other side, what is observed is particularly crop prices, when I say the prices of the pulses, over the period it has declined. Whereas the input cost for the farming sector has been on the increase. Whether it is in the case of fertilizers, whether it is in the case of pesticides, whether it is in the case of purchase of seeds, you call anything, that is on the increase. So in this respect, we are finding that the farmers' margins are getting squeezed. And if the farmers' margin gets squeezed because their earnings falling, their expenditure rising, so their margins are getting squeezed. And when their margins are getting squeezed, that will automatically be reflected in their demand for goods and services. So this is the why in the rural sector there is a fall in consumption demand. In the urban sector, obviously with the fall in consumption mostly started with the automobile sector, and then it has spread into the FMCG sectors as well. It has some multiplier effects. variety of reasons are there, starting from the uh, continual effect of the demonetization to the GST effects, etc., all have its implications. But interestingly, it is important to note that while the government has the honest view to bring the entire economy into the transparent mode, so-called transparent mode, but this is a disruption process. Any process when there is a particular process of too much of cash transactions in the economy and you want to break that process and bring it into the what we call as a more transparent form of an economy where everything is accountable, right? There is some sort of a disruption. So this is, I feel, there has been some disruption. Now the important point is this disruption, why it is so prolonged, as you asked me, how much is structural, how much is cyclical. Initially it was thought of that it is to a large extent cyclical, okay, and it will get rectified. But the thing that is now gradually becoming, I should not say still now that there are structural problems. I still believe that India's macroeconomic overall structure and framework still remains quite robust. But if the slowdown is not arrested immediately, then one can expect from the so-called cyclical what you use, from that perspective it might move to a structural slowdown, and in that case it will be difficult and it will be a prolonged effect. Why I am saying this thing, my last, before you can start, why I am saying this thing is because there are responses by the government, but most of the responses by the government till now has been mostly on the supply side. Before this budget I am speaking of. Yes. Whereas the main problem was on the demand side. As an illustration, the cut in corporate tax that was announced in September 2019, right, where the Honorable Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman announced the cut in corporate tax from 30% to 22% for the existing business and from 25% to 15% for the new manufacturing business or units. The interesting part is that what was the objective? The objective was that the firms will going to enjoy greater profit. This profit will be translated into greater investment for the business. Investment is very important to boost GDP. But the paradox is that investment will only going to take up if the firms perceive that there is a significant demand for the goods on which they want to invest. So first thing is first, you have to address the consumption demand, then automatically investment will start picking up.